Hi guys, it's Kelly here. I'm back with another video. This is for actually the Ink Blot Shop. My friend Tiffany blessed me and sent me some new stamps of hers for her 1 year anniversary. So I ended up using the plaid background and the Hello Lovely stamp set, but I also showed you the simple sentiments and stretch sentiments, even though I didn't end up using them. I thought I was gonna. And then I'm also using the stitched rectangles die from Simon Says Stamp. I took the second largest one in there, and I'm going to cut myself a frame. So I'm going to take that off screen, run it through my Big Shot, bring it back, peel off that washi tape that was holding it in place, and then I just want the outside frame portion of it. I'm going to trace that onto another piece of white cardstock. This is Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock, just so I know where I need to get the ink so that everything is covered. I picked out my good old rainbow of Distress Oxides because rainbows are wonderful and make me happy. And I'm going to ink this up multicolor. So I'm starting with Abandoned Coral, and this one I am putting down flat. So I'm just doing kind of the right hand side. For every other color, I'm going to, and it's going to be really hard for you to see, I'm going to tilt it, and it's at a pretty severe angle, so just the left-hand side of that ink pad is touching my stamp. So that way I'm leaving the Abandoned Coral there, and I'm also leaving the left-hand side empty for the next color. I'm going to do that all the way through the rainbow till I get to the Wilted Violet. When I do the Wilted Violet, I'm actually going to come in from the left-hand side. So that same kind of severe angle, but this time it's down to the right. And I also managed to get my card. See that over there on the left? Yeah, that was brilliant. But it doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter because that part's going to be covered up by the frame, thank God. So I'm flip my cardstock on top of my stamp, and then I'm going to cover it with a scrap piece of paper and then press really firmly. Just kind of rub my hands over the stamp. So that I get a good impression. You can see I got a nice little rainbow going. Not all of the colors were unadulterated. There were some, I did get some, I think, blue in my green. I'm not worried about it. It's just a background. It's not my focal point. So I'm going to continue to use the same Distress Oxide. I love patterns, but I don't like patterns that are kind of in your face. So in order to soften that a little bit, I did tone on tone. So used all those same colors to just go over the same areas that I stamped. I'm done with that. I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to start doing the stamping. I'm using Intense Black ink from Simon Says Stamp because I'm going to do copic coloring. I'm going to stamp 4 girls. In the set, there are a multitude of girls, and they are all beautiful. They are also perfect for what I want to talk to you guys about today, which is skin tones. So I, like most crafters, typically color my skin tones Caucasian. Not everybody's Caucasian. I apparently, as a crafter, I missed the memo. And so there's a bunch of different ways that you can color skin tones. So we're going to talk about that today. I wanted to show you very quickly in the stamp set, there's also many faces. And you can see the girl on the top right with the curly hair and the girl on the bottom right. I use the same face, but it looks totally different because of the girl. So some have like little upturned noses, some have side profile noses, others have straight on. So we're going to just talk about skin tones. Here, this young lady, I'm going to color her as if she has more of an Asian skin tone. So you can see I'm putting down this blue. Do not be frightened. I'm not turning her into an alien or anything strange. Asian skin tone, typically very pale, very beautiful. And so in order to kind of replicate that, because they are so pale, a lot of times it's a cooler skin tone. That's why we're using the blue as the base. And then we're going to put some other colors on top of it to kind of warm it up. But still, it's going to be a more cooler, a more kind of yellow. For each of the girls, I picked their skin tone, and then I also picked a lip and a blush color. So for this one, because she is so pale, I used an R11. And then I color all of them the same. You're going to see the same thing like, well, I was going to say like 1,600 times. But really, it's just 4 because I only have 4 girls. But it's going to be a lot. So anyway, I always start with my lightest color, work out to my darkest, from darkest back into my lightest. And for her, I felt like I didn't really have enough contrast. Very hard to achieve with a pale skin tone. So I went back in with that blue again. Each girl I'm going to color all the way through. So now we're going to move on to her hair. And I know you're looking at that B24 like, Kelly, you lost your mind. But I haven't lost my mind. Just stay with me. So when I do hair, I use that flicking motion. So light touch, just the tip of the marker, and I'm flicking in the direction the hair is going. Typically with black hair, it's very, very shiny. And I am very, very jealous. When people who have long straight black hair stand in the sun, it's like you need sunglasses to look at them. It's so shiny and beautiful, and my sister has hair like that. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so you don't want it to be a flat black. In real life, black hair is not a flat black color. It has highlights, that beautiful shine that I'm talking about, but it also is a base color. Sometimes it's purple, sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's red. For here, we're doing blue, obviously. You saw me put it down. And as we're start building it up, just trust me. It's going to look good in the end. Right now, she kind of looks like a old gray-haired lady with blue hair. But she won't end up that way. She'll end up having shiny, beautiful hair. I have a tendency to color as if my light source is in the top right-hand corner, and that just kind of stays with me. But for this exercise, I'm not really worried about a light source. I just wanted to show you the different skin tones and kind of go from there. But I also feel like I kind of cheat you guys if I don't show you the whole process. So I'm going to be coloring there each girl, which is why we're looking at another 30-minute video, folks. Hope you didn't plan on having a life outside of watching my YouTube videos. Anyway. So as we're going through out to the darker colors, I'm going over the same areas. I'm not really extending the color out too much at this point, doing the same flicking motions, but we're building up that darkness, and you can start to see how it's going to appear shiny. The bigger the highlight, so the larger the white area you leave in black hair, the bigger the contrast, the more shine she's going to have. I wanted the shine to be, I guess, more concentrated on the top right-hand side. So the underneath of her hair and the left-hand side is going to be a bit darker. You can do whatever works for you. I did not, when I was going back through, add in the C5. It just really didn't seem like it was necessary. I did go in and add more of that B24. So that you'd be able to see a little bit of that. But you can see how those white portions that you leave is what actually gives you the shine in her hair. When I was coloring their outfits, I was trying to think about where they were going to be positioned on that background, that rainbow background. But also, I wanted them to have colors that were going to be complementary to their skin tones. Like me personally, I'm naturally a brunette. I go visit my friend Lori, and then I come out with some blonde highlights, and a lot of blonde highlights. But because of the fact that I do have blonde hair and I am not particularly tan, if I put yellow on, it's not a good look for me. It is not pretty. So I tried to give them colors that I thought would be complementary to their skin tones and their hair colors. But I also wanted the colors that are in the background represented. So here I gave her kind of like a bright green, which I thought would be really striking with her black hair. Another great color would be red. But I also brought in a little bit of that purple so that when we put them all together on the background, each color is kind of balanced out. So I'm going to do the piping on her shirt, dress, whatever, white. I should not have colored that whole thing with the C1. P.S. Don't do that. Just do the shading from the outside edges in. Leave that center as your lightest color. I actually went back in with a white gel pen and just kind of colored the center white so that it would look more white. But yeah, don't do that. I don't know what I was thinking. I was lost in thought. There was a lot of lost in thought while I was coloring these little ladies here. So this young lady is going to be a redhead. She's going to have a pale skin tone, but it's going to be a little bit warmer. This hairstyle is very familiar to me as of right now because I'm doing the 21-day fix. My hair is naturally curly. It is not long, black, glossy, shiny like my sister's. And I do not even have time to do my hair right now. Like, I just do not. Like, I do my workout, I get out of the shower, and I'm so tired, I just go to bed with my hair wet, and then I wake up and I basically look like I've been electrocuted. I mean, raise your hand if you have sympathy, because it's terrible. So I just throw it up, and I haven't put a headband on in years, but maybe I should because I think it looks totally cute on her. But typically it's like a top knot of curly hair right on top of my head. Anyway, with this one, I did want to give her a little variation to her skin tone because she is more of Irish, so that, you know, warmer skin tone, redder hair. So I did do some dots on top of her skin, and then I also added more of a shadow along the left hand side of her nose. I picked some colors for her hair because I wanted her to be a traditional redhead, and they look terrifying when you start to put them down, like really terrifying. All I'm doing is scribbling on this marker. So basically the little scribbles that you see for her hair, I'm doing the same thing. Now I am concentrating the darker color more around her headband where it would push down her hair. It would be darker, but I am kind of moving some of those little corkscrews out into the rest of her hair. Curly hair is a little bit more difficult because there are so many highlights and lowlights in curly hair because there's so much going on that it can kind of be a little bit more difficult to make look super realistic. So here, my darkest color is an E09. So the two colors I use are YRs and then the darkest shading with the E09. And then I'm doing the same thing. So I'm doing the little squiggles. I'm trying to pay attention to where the lines are, concentrating my lighter colors more toward the front of her face and the top of her hair where light would be coming through. And then I also used that YR14 to add some few more freckles to her cheeks, and then later I did her shoulders. I didn't do it right away. Why did I add them to her shoulders? Because let me tell you, I'm Irish and I got freckles on my shoulders. So for her outfit, I went with this kind of like bright blue and orange complementary colors, so I knew that they would look good together, and it wouldn't be competition for her super bold hair. So with the headband, the outside edges are going to be darker. For her shirt, because she has this kind of loose off the shoulder ruffle, I am adding some shading. I'm adding little triangles of shading to where it indents on her shoulders. And then I also added just a little kind of like a half C where her shirt comes down that way. And that's just to give this some movement. I'm really just concentrating on getting my colors in the right areas the first time around. And then the second time I go through it is when I will start to build it up and spread it out. Now, if you wanted this B00 to be your main color, you certainly don't have to spread the color out as far as I did. You could just blend them and it would look fine this color. I decided to make it a little bit darker since her hair is so bold. But each one of these girls is going to have shading on the outside edges of her clothing as if there was like a center highlight, just to give them some depth and some shape. For the B02, I'm putting a lot of that down because I want the B00 to really just be my highlight color. I'll give everything kind of a once over, and then I'm going to call her done. Now, we're moving on to this young lady who's more of a Latino skin tone, so it's just slightly darker. Now, here's what I mean when I'm lost in thought. Like, I pick up my skin tones, and then I start coloring her hair. What? What is happening? I have no idea. I'm just like, la 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 la, colors make me happy, and not even paying attention. So I guess I'm just on autopilot at this point. So again, and I haven't really been talking about what I'm doing shading with the face. So if the light source was in the top right hand corner, because she has a side profile, there would be a shadow on the left hand side of her nose. The hair that's falling over her face on the right hand side would cast a shadow, and then the left hand side of her face would be more in shadow underneath her neck. And because of the way that her shirt comes up kind of over her shoulders, there would be a shadow there as well. The darkest color, I'm only adding a very little bit, and I've been shading underneath all of their lips. I don't have any lips. God did not bless me with big, full, beautiful lips, but these young ladies have them, and so I assume that they would cast a small shadow onto their faces. So just going back out, and here I picked up my lightest color and started blending her face with that, and then I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. So now I'm going to go back in with a darker color. I have to tell you, when I was looking for these, so I went on Pinterest and, Google, and looking at all these different skin combinations that people recommended. And one of the ones that people recommended for a darker skin tone was the E50 family, which I love. The E50 family are like my family. They're my go-tos. I love them for hair colors. But the skin tones that people did with the E50s looked like something out of the zombie apocalypse. Like, those images looked dead people. Like, if you want to color a dead person, get the E50 family. I don't know why you'd want to color a dead person, but if you did, do that. Also, pause this video and go Google that right now. I'll wait. So anyway, moving on to her hair. Her hair is drawn in a way that it looks wavy. So in order to play that up, we are going to do a lot more highlights. So pick wherever the hair is going to be the darkest, where it kind of rises and falls, and then shade out from your darkest areas. Leave yourself a generous highlight. Also, ignore the fact that I missed the left-hand side of her hair, okay? I will get it later, I promise. So here I'm not really extending, there's a word. I'm not really extending the color out past what I first put down. Here, you can see my marker was starting to bleed out. So I took the back of it off, and you can just see how much darker that is and how it's not very detailed. It's kind of like blobby. If that happens to you, if your marker is overfilled, take the back of it off. It'll even out the ink in the marker. You'll be fine. So just continuing to add those darker colors. I wanted her hair to be dark, but I wanted it to be a bit warmer. So that's why I chose the colors that I did, bringing in that E29 is a warmer brown. So everything the same. You want to make sure when you're doing this, you're following the shape of the hair. You don't want to just be straight up and down. That's not the way her hair is drawn, so it will look awkward. You want to go with the flow and the shape of what's already there. So the darkest color I'm using is an E49, which is the darkest brown that is available in Copics. And I'm not adding a ton of it, really just concentrating it right next to her neck. So when your hair falls behind your shoulder, it's darker there at her part, and then those areas where I want that to really look like it's set in. So, but we're not adding a ton of this. This little piece behind her shirt, that will definitely be darker. And then the same thing, everything the same. We're working back out toward the lightest color, but this time we're going to start extending those lines out. So definitely going to have some darker color behind her neck. The highlight of her hair that's closer to her shoulder is not going to be as extreme as the highlight that was going to be on the top of her head. So just extending those lines up, trying to make sure we're following that shape. The lightest color here, so this is the second to lightest, and there's still a little bit of white left. I am not going to completely cover up that white. Again, like we talked about with the black hair, that's what gives you your shine. I don't want her to look like she has dull hair, but I am going to go in with that lightest color because Copics are transparent. They will pick up color, so it's going to create kind of another tone, but I am being very careful to leave some white in there so it looks very shiny. Now, once you do this, you may find that your skin tone is not as dark as you would have liked it, or your shadows aren't as dark. That's fine. I just went back in with my darkest color and kind of bolstered up those shadows a little bit. I'm going to color her flower red. Now, remember what I said before, how I was thinking about that background that I'm coloring. And I want those colors represented. I knew nobody was going to be wearing a bright red shirt, but I can get some red in there by coloring her flower. I used 3 colors, completely unnecessary. It's not a lot of real estate. You do not need 3 colors. You can totally shade it with 2. It's fine. When I'm on autopilot and I'm used to picking 3 to 4 colors. So that's how that worked for me. There's been a couple of trust me here moments in this card, like when I started coloring the first skin tone and I started using blue. This is another one. At this point, my young lady looks like she's wearing a court jester costume. She is not. It's not going to look like that. Hang tight. We're going to make it work. So I'm putting in those little triangles because I want her top to be ruffled. in order for something to look ruffled, it has to have peaks and valleys. So for this beautiful little Latino girl, purple is beautiful on brown. I don't know if you know that. If you have brown eyes, you are encouraged to wear purple eyeshadow. I don't. I have blue. They encourage me to wear brown eyeshadow because it's complementary color. My sisters have brown. They look amazing in purple eyeshadow. Now, I'm not talking about like 1980s purple up to your eyebrows. Don't do that. Unless you feel really pretty like that. Then do that. Like, you do you. So I knew that purple would be a really good color to kind of set off her hair and her skin tone. That's how I picked this. And again, representing that rainbow. So here, I'm going to start filling in around the triangles. I'm not actually going to touch the triangles. I want that white area between the triangles. Because here's where the magic happens, folks. When you cover that up with the lighter color, then you can see how it looks ruffled, how you create those peaks and valleys. If you want it to be more blended than it is, just go back in. I will caution you against overblending. Overblending will get rid of those peaks and valleys. We don't want that. We want it to be, you need a distinct highlight because that is what's going to be your peak. So I did want it to be just slightly more blended, so I did it a second time. Then I was happy with the way it looked, and then we're moving on to the next one. For this particular young lady, I'm going to do her nose slightly different because her nose is front facing. So when I add her shadows, it's the same thing on her face. Now, I have told you I have naturally curly hair. And I have worn my curly hair down, and let me tell you, it covers your entire face. So her shadows are going to be all around her face, but then I also added 2 little lines up to create kind of the eye socket, the way that that's going to look, and then also still adding that same shadow underneath her lip and under her neck. Her shirt would cast a small shadow if there was strong lighting. I was just looking for a way to kind of add a little bit more color. And then I'm also going to add a shadow underneath her nose so it kind of sticks out from her face. Our noses are not flat to our faces. They do cast shadows. Adding very, very little of the darkest color because this is very dark. One of the reasons why darker skin tones, whether that be, a mid-tone, more like the young lady on the right, or this lady we're coloring now, the African-American, one of the reasons why this is overwhelming is because with a darker skin tone, it starts to eat up those black lines. So it starts to feel like no line coloring. And no line coloring is terrifying, let's face it. But it doesn't have to be. And if it feels like things get too dark for you where you're comfortable, just go over with the lightest color. It will lift it. So the same thing, I picked a blush color I felt like would be complementary to her skin tone, and the same, using the same lip color. I do tend to go back with the lightest color and just blend that in. This is going to be another trust me moment. That VO9 is a very, very bright purple. Yes, I'm going to put purple in her hair. Yes, this is about to look like my 4-year-old colored it because we're doing those little scribbles and we're using a purple marker in hair. Yeah, Nathan probably could have colored this. It would probably look exactly the same. But it's not going to stay like that. Remember earlier when I was talking about how they can have a red base or they can have a blue base or a purple base? So I decided to go with the purple base for this one. The reason I didn't go red, let me explain that, is because her skin tone is already so warm. I didn't want her red hair to blend into her skin tone. So I went with the purple. So now that I have it down, I'm going to go over it with the C5. Same thing, little scribbles, same way we colored the little Irish lady up at the top. Doing hers all the same. I'm going to concentrate again more around that headband with the darker colors. And then I'm also going to, when the colors start to get darker, I'm going to make my little scribbles, my little scribble circles smaller. I wanted this to be more of a tighter curl, more controlled, even though she has a lot of hair, very big, beautiful hair. I wanted it to just be a little bit more controlled in how the curls were looking. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm just making sure I concentrate the darker color around that headband, behind her neck, where those would naturally be darker. And then the darkest color is obviously the 100, the actual black. And for this one, I'm doing those smaller little scribbles, but I'm actually going outside of the lines. The reason that is because the way that it's drawn is drawn with those big curls, and I wanted to make sure that the whole feel of it had the feel of smaller curls. So I just kind of created my own edges, and again added that back where it needed to be. I didn't even have to go kind of like back through. It just wasn't necessary. So I used the same oranges, the YR14 and the YR18, and I combined it with a yellow. So again, purple, yellow, complementary colors. And also, I don't know if you've ever paid attention, if you are into fashion or not into fashion, but African American women, beautiful, beautiful women, look amazing, completely amazing in bright colors. Because their skin tone is darker, they can pull off those bright colors like nobody's business. I could never wear a shirt this color. It would look awful on me. It looks stunning on her. So I wanted that, again, trying to represent those same colors in the rainbow background, but I wanted something that would be complementary to her, and this yellow is going to totally pull that off for me. So now we got all our peeps colored, everybody colored, everybody's friends. And I'm going to go in and do some white highlights. So I added some white highlights to both of the flowers. I did color in, like I told you before, that piping. I added some white to the center of the piping. And then I'm also going to add just some white detail lines to her shirt here, just for something different. Everybody else has kind of like a pattern or something going on, and hers is just kind of bleh, stripes. I outline all my images. You watch my videos, you know this. This is not news to you. And I outlined all of these because I feel like it makes my colors pop, and that makes me very happy. So I will tell you, I outlined all of them in a 0.35, except for their facial features. I used a 0.25. I'm going to fussy cut all these pretty little gals out, and I'm leaving that bottom piece. And the reason I did is so I could play with their height when I was gluing them onto the card. Once they're fussy cut, I'm going to use a Tombow Tuxedo Black Memento marker, not a Tombow, Memento. And I'm going to do the outside edges. This is just going to clean them up and make my edges really clean. And then I'm going to start putting my card together. So the frame is not adhered to the card at this point. I'm just trying to get a feel for where my girls are going to go. And really by the end of this, it almost looks like a photograph of like 4 friends together, which I kind of love. So once I was happy with the way that they were, I held them in place and lifted up just that bottom edge of the frame. I put Tombow on a multi-glue on the white pieces that are not colored, and I stuck them to the frame. I wanted to pop them up, and I figured this was the easiest way to get that done. So now that they're adhered to the frame, I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to use my Mini Misty to stamp my sentiment. I put that in place while I had the girls in place, just so you know how I got my placement. I'm using black ink from Simon Says Stamp, good crisp black ink for sentiments. And I chose Hello Lovely because they are all lovely. They are all different and unique and beautiful. So here I am putting a ton, oh my gosh, so much Scotch foam tape on the back of this. And then I'm going to adhere that down to the panel, which I did eventually adhere down to a white card base. So just to kind of accent the sentiment, I used some clear sequins. Yeah, did you see that? My glue attacked me. Glue's on the attack. So I put those down, and then the last thing I'm going to do is add some clear Wink of Stella, just to kind of their accessories and to make them all sparkly, because all the ladies that I know anyway like the sparkle. So that's it. That's the whole card. So I hope that you guys learned something, that you'll try this in your own card making. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment. I try to be pretty good about answering your guys' questions. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.